Hi guys, I'm back again with some more stories for you today. Let's go to the first one, about Opie's brother, who demands he leaves an inheritance to his stepson instead of his own daughter. Listen to the story to find out the details, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 53 male, currently own a property that has been in my family for 6 generations. It's a 4-bedroom brick house that sits on a small acreage. That house has been passed down from father to eldest son. Even if he isn't the firstborn, like my father who was the youngest of 4 and still got the house. When my parents died in a car accident 20 years, I got the house and some money. My brother Dan, 48 male, got a lot of money but no land. Dan is married to Kelly, 43 female, and together they have 2 kids from previous relationships. My niece Sarah, 20 female, and Kelly's son Tommy, 16 male. Sarah's mom died when she was 15, and Dan moved Kelly in less than a year later, and married her 6 months after that. Kelly tried to basically replace Sarah's mom, and Dan actively encouraged his wife to force Sarah to bond. This backfired terribly for them, and now she doesn't speak to either of them, only me. Dan and Kelly have since refocused their efforts onto Tommy. They try to make Tommy call my brother Dad, even though he has a dad that is active in his life. They keep trying to figure out a way to sever Tommy's dad's parental rights so Dan can adopt him. It's a mess, and nothing I say seems to get through to Dan and Kelly. Recently, I realized that I'm the same age as my parents when they died, so I contacted a lawyer to help settle my affairs. Unfortunately, Dan also realized the same thing, and on a family Zoom call, started asking me about the house. See, I don't have a spouse or any children. Anyway, I decided that I was going to leave pretty much everything to Sarah. Well, Dan got upset and said, "What about Tommy?" I said, "What do you mean?" Dan replied, "He's my son, and as the firstborn son, he has a right to the house." I said, "That's S, dude, because she's a near direct blood relative that would actually love the house." Dan got angrier and said, "How can I treat my nephew like this?" Like what? I could leave him money if that's the issue. I hadn't thought to give him anything, but if it would keep the peace, I can give him a good chunk of money. Dan said that I'm excluding him from the family tradition, and I need to treat his kids more equally. Eventually, he hung up. Thing is, I've met Tommy in person maybe 5 times for holidays, and every time he was sulking and staring at some screen. If I tried to engage with him, he always told me to duck off or some variation of that. I don't hate him. He got dealt a hard hand, but he's made it perfectly clear he doesn't want anything to do with our family. The rest of the family is torn. Some think I shouldn't change my will and leave Tommy with nothing. Others think I should give the house to Tommy, because Sarah can just marry a rich man to give her a nice house. Gross. And some say Tommy should get my money, and Sarah should get the house. So, am I the a-hole for not leaving my nephew with our family home? Edit. I'm going to meet with my lawyer this week to hammer out the final details. But either way, I'm giving Sarah sole ownership of the house, along with any remaining funds. I plan to leave small sums of money to any relative I think will cause my niece any issues, so they can't contest the will. After I'm done, I'll not be speaking about it with them anymore. Some of you have pointed out how strange it is that my extended family has been sold on this idea of Tommy getting the house. At first, I thought it was just their normal chauvinistic BS. Now that I think about it, some of their responses don't really make sense to me. I'll try to see if I can find out what's going on. Sarah deserves the house. It belongs to her family, and she's next in line. Tommy still has his father's side as well. Will Sarah get gifted things from that side too if, touch wood, something happens? At the end of the day, it's Opie's property, his will. His brother doesn't need to know what's in it. And now let's hear if the community agrees with me. Cayenne P. Forinda says, "Not the a-hole. He wants you to treat his kids more equally by giving the son your house simply because he's male? How's that equal?" Arbor Arabicae says, "Not the a-hole. Leave your assets the way you want. You're under no obligation to leave your brother's stepson anything. But if you wanted to leave him something, that would be nice. Your brother chose to marry someone with a child, which means he's obligated to treat him like his own. But you aren't. I feel badly for the kid, but none of this is your fault." Lady Cass 79 says, "Not the a-hole. It's your property. The tradition is patriarchal and deserves to be broken. You could leave it to a charity if you really wished, but I think it is perfectly appropriate to leave it to a beloved niece. You don't have a relationship or bond with Tommy, and while it's entirely your choice, he isn't entitled to inherit. My ex, Dylan, 25 male, and I, 25 female, met in high school and dated for almost 3 years. I broke up with him after I discovered that he cheated on me with a girl who had just turned 17. He was about to turn 20 when it happened, and I went no contact almost immediately. After graduating college, I moved to a different county to get a job in my field of work. But since he got a similar degree, and I have terrible luck, we ended up meeting again a couple months ago when he was hired into the same company and department I'm in. He tried approaching me, but I told him from the get-go that I really didn't want to talk to him any more than necessary. He got upset and said that I was being unfair, that he was engaged and just wanted to be friends again. But I held my ground. Our company's anniversary party dinner was 2 weeks ago, and we could invite our partners. But I'm single, so I just went by myself. My ex went to the party with his fiancée, Mary, and the seating plan went by departments. So we were at the same table, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Later in the night, when people had some drinks already, one of our co-workers asked Mary if she knew that Dylan and I had dated before. She said she didn't, and asked why we had broken up. Since this was a work dinner, I just said I didn't want to talk about it, but she insisted until someone else at the table intervened and changed the topic. A bit after, I saw my boss leaving. I said my goodbyes and tried to leave too, but Mary followed me and basically cornered me in the parking lot, saying she really wanted to know why Dylan and I had broken up. I said that was between us and it was none of her business, but she got pushy and wouldn't let me leave. So I eventually snapped and confessed that he cheated. She went back inside and I went home. Monday at work, Dylan told me during our break that Mary broke off the engagement, and it's my fault for telling her he cheated on me. So I needed to convince Mary to take him back. I told him what happened in the parking lot and apologized for telling her, because obviously I shouldn't have. But I refused to help him get his fiancée back, because I'm not going to lie for his benefit. He said I'm being a B and just trying to get back at him. Some people started throwing some weird looks at me after that, and apparently it's because he's been bad-mouthing me around the office and saying that I ruined his relationship on purpose because I was jealous. I told my friends I'm considering reporting him to HR for pulling this crap. Some agree that I should do it, but some think that risking his job for this would be too much, since a bit of office gossip isn't really going to hurt me, and he will get let go eventually. So would I be the a-hole if I went to HR to report him? OP didn't do anything wrong in my opinion. OP's ex is trying to punish OP for all his bad choices, while OP has tried everything to stay away from him. I think that Dylan sounds pretty toxic, and OP should really speak to HR. Them two should not be working in the same department. This sounds like it's going to be a long-term issue, and if OP plans on working here long, she should see if there's a way to move to a different work group, or have a working accommodation that limits contact with Dylan. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Natural Garbage 7674 says, "Not the a-hole. Report him. Dylan brought a guest to a company event who harassed and detained you until you revealed private information. Then he blamed you for his guest's inappropriate behavior and is picking on you by speaking badly about you. Go to HR. Tell them that you had a relationship with him in the past and that you hadn't spoken to him until he started at the company. That you declined to have a personal relationship with him. That you've been professional but personally distant. That Dylan brought his fiancée as his guest to the party, and she badgered you and behaved inappropriately towards you, and he did nothing to stop it. When you attempted to remove yourself from the situation, you were cornered until you felt the need to answer the questions to be able to leave. Dylan is now blaming you for his relationship issues, despite the fact that he is the one responsible for it happening, and is lying to your coworkers to convince you to lying to his fiancée. Tell them you just want to work and don't understand why you're being dragged into his relationship." Lies Trick says, "Not the a-hole, and a bit of office gossip can do a lot of things. Maybe check with HR if they can be discreet. Last thing you want is another reason for gossip. Sounds like your ex hasn't changed much. This is on him for not being honest with Mary in the first place." Mustang 66 says, "Not the a-hole. He cheats, you tell the truth. He badmouths you, which creates a toxic workplace environment and claims you are the bad person here. Hell no. Report him to HR for his actions. They fire him. You go in peace. What is not to just love of this plan? Go to HR. He will get exactly what he deserves." Recently, we were staying at my mother-in-law's house for the weekend. My brother-in-law, husband's brother, and sister-in-law visited one night and left after we went to bed. They then sent a text that we were pulling out and we hit your car and we will pay. My car has a pretty bad scrape on the side. The thing is that I know my sister-in-law was drinking, and I get the feeling she had been driving. But when I'm trying to figure out what happened, it's always we. So I keep trying to find a way to ask without straight up saying it, and eventually I say, "Who was driving?" And I get the response, "Why?" Like they are purposely hiding it. Here's the thing. My sister-in-law and I don't get along at all. We're as polar opposites as anyone can be. I'm a hard worker. She's a self-professed layabout. My brother-in-law makes all the money in their house, and she spends it all while doing absolutely nothing. And she has money coming in from her parents as well. The reason I want to know is because I think it's important that if she was driving, it should be her personal money that pays for it, not my brother-in-law's. I don't think she's ever had to face the consequences of her own actions before. I also know she was drinking, and think that if this was a drunk driving incident, we should know. She could really harm someone with that behavior. My husband and I got into a fight about it now, because he says, why does it matter? He doesn't understand why I think it's important. Even when I said we should make an official report and go through insurance, he said he doesn't want her to get in trouble, not them, so he knows the truth too. Now we're fighting about it. Am I the a-hole? Yes, a possible DUI is terribly dangerous, and if it was in fact sister-in-law driving, then she's an a-hole. So is brother-in-law, because he let her. But how brother-in-law and sister-in-law run their finances is none of OP's concern. So if they say they will pay for it, where that money originates is none of OP's business. OP sounds jealous of her sister-in-law in my opinion. And now let's see what the community has to say on the matter. Primary Criticism 929 says, "You're the a-hole. Stop trying to parent an adult. You're not going to teach anybody anything. Get your money and move on." Derp Devil DD says, "You are not your sister-in-law's parent, and you have no place in their relationship. You have no standing to demand anything or decree where any money should come from. No one cares that you think you're better than your sister-in-law and are gnawing at the bit over your chance to prove it with this incident and hold it over her head for the rest of the time you know each other. Grow up. You're the a-hole." Kahlua HXH fan says, "I get you're upset and frustrated, but honestly, as long as the bill is getting paid, you shouldn't care whose pocket it comes from. They are a couple, and they decide how their money is spent. You can be upset about her lifestyle choices, but ultimately, she ain't your spouse, and if brother-in-law is okay with it, then it's none of your business. Also, if she was driving, then she's an a-hole for DUI. That's the only part you should be concerning yourself with. Nothing else." I, male 30, am close with my brother, male 28, and his wife, female 28. My wife, female 30, and my sister-in-law have been very good friends since they first met. They regularly meet up without me and my brother. I love the fact they are friends. We also meet up all together and we all get on well. I suspected my wife was cheating on me. Long story short, this was confirmed with loads of evidence. I confronted my wife and she confessed. We're going through therapy. Some of the evidence I found was on my wife's phone. While looking for evidence, I found messages between my wife and sister-in-law. The messages show my sister-in-law knew about the affair for months. In the messages, she empathized with my wife. She said she would understand if my wife left me. She didn't exactly tell my wife off for cheating. My sister-in-law didn't tell me. I didn't get any anonymous tips or hints or anything. She didn't help my wife cover her tracks, and she never lied to me to help my wife. But she could have told me, and she chose not to. I don't think my brother knew. My wife says it's her own fault for cheating, and my sister-in-law was just being a good friend to her. My sister-in-law says she has done nothing wrong. My brother backs up my sister-in-law. But I feel angry towards my sister-in-law. It means two people who I'm close to have been deceitful to me. She helped to prolong my hurt. So am I the a-hole for being mad at my sister-in-law? Should I expect an apology from her? Edit. 3-year-old daughter, married 8 years. My wife said she got bored and fell out of love with me, but she said she realized her mistake after she cheated, and now she wants to be back together. She said someone else would be lucky to have me. Edit 2. I'm angry with my wife, so I'm redirecting anger from my wife to my sister-in-law. I'm asking whether I'm justified in being angry at my sister-in-law as well as being angry at my wife. Kay Lurton says, "If your brother is saying his wife was right and basically condoning and hiding your wife's cheating, Have you asked him how he'd feel if the roles were or reversed? I would expect more from my brother. Not the a-hole, but sounds like you're surrounded by quite a few. This sounds like a lengthy affair. What ended it? What prevents your wife from being bored again? Is she expecting you to do all the changing? I'd be long gone personally. You and your daughter deserve better. Refusing pauper says, it ended after I confronted her. Not immediately though, sadly. Temporary King 3339 says, not the a-hole, but everyone else is. Worst betrayal is your wife. But your sister-in-law not only did not tell you, but condoned it according to texts you read. So she doesn't feel guilty because you're trying to get your marriage together. Would she have felt guilty if your wife had given you an STD? And it's one thing for your brother to support his wife, but she lied. If I were him, I would be a little upset and leery if my spouse were that dismissive of an affair. Not just dismissive, but empathetic. I suspect your wife got dumped. You deserve better. John 23456 says, not the a-hole. So many people seem to have missed the part where sister-in-law supported the affair and said she would understand if your wife left you. She did not stay out of it. She was in it and on the side of the affair. If your wife really wants to reconcile with you, she has to understand that she can't have the same relationship with the friend that supported the affair, especially if the friend is non-apologetic.